In a shocking turn of events, President Trump has abruptly canceled peace talks with Iran, escalating tensions in an already volatile region. This decision could have far-reaching implications for global security and diplomacy. Here's everything you need to know about today's developments. On April 28, 2026, President Donald Trump announced the cancellation of highly anticipated peace talks with Iranian officials. The announcement was made during a press briefing at 9 a.m. EDT in Washington, D.C. Trump stated, "It would have been too expensive and time-consuming to accept an inadequate Iranian offer." This abrupt decision shocked many in the diplomatic community, as the talks were seen as a potential breakthrough in U.S.-Iran relations. Key figures involved included U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who had been working closely with Iranian diplomats to negotiate terms, and Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, who had traveled to Pakistan just days prior to secure support for the discussions. The most surprising aspect of this cancellation was Trump's assertion that while Iran had offered much, it was not enough to warrant U.S. engagement. The context of these talks was rooted in years of escalating tensions following the U.S. withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal in 2018. Since then, both nations have engaged in a series of confrontations, including sanctions and military skirmishes in the Gulf region. Many analysts viewed the ongoing discussions as a crucial opportunity to de-escalate these tensions and prevent further conflict. The cancellation, therefore, not only undermines these diplomatic efforts, but also raises fears of renewed hostilities in the region. The impact of this decision could be significant, particularly for regional allies and adversaries alike. Countries like Israel, which had long viewed Iran as a threat, may feel emboldened to pursue more aggressive policies. Conversely, nations like Saudi Arabia and Iraq, which have been advocating for dialogue, may be disheartened by the apparent collapse of negotiations. Furthermore, this move could affect global oil prices, as uncertainty often leads to volatility in the markets. Looking ahead, the cancellation of these talks may leave the U.S. with fewer diplomatic options to address Iran's nuclear ambitions. As both sides reassess their strategies, the potential for further escalation looms large. In the coming weeks, Iran's regional behavior will be crucial to watch as it reacts to the U.S.'s latest stance, particularly in terms of military posturing and alliance building in the Middle East. The recent cancellation of peace talks between Iran and the United States has immediate and severe implications for regional stability in the Middle East. Analysts warn that this breakdown in negotiations could lead to escalating tensions, potentially igniting further military confrontations. The fallout would not only involve Iran and the U.S., but could also drag in key regional allies such as Israel and Saudi Arabia, both of which have vested interests in the outcome of these discussions. The Iranian government has already issued strong statements condemning the cancellation, labeling it a step back from diplomacy and a significant setback for peace efforts in the region. Historically, these talks were seen as a crucial step toward de-escalation, following years of heightened tensions and economic sanctions that have crippled the Iranian economy. The breakdown of dialogue raises concerns about the future of diplomatic relations, as both sides may resort to aggressive posturing. With Iran's economy already under strain, the potential for tighter economic sanctions could exacerbate domestic issues, affecting millions of ordinary citizens who are already grappling with inflation and unemployment. The average person should be concerned about the broader implications of rising tensions. The likelihood of conflict often leads to spikes in oil prices, which can ripple through global markets and increase household expenses. Moreover, military deployments may rise as nations prepare for possible confrontations, resulting in loss of life and further destabilization of an already fragile region. Increased military presence could also heighten the risk of miscalculations, leading to unintended escalations. Looking ahead, the cancellation of these talks signals a troubling regression in diplomatic relations that could have lasting repercussions. If both sides do not return to the negotiating table soon, we may witness a resurgence of hostilities reminiscent of past conflicts. The potential for a military confrontation looms large, with the specter of renewed conflict threatening not just the immediate area, but also global peace and security. The international community must act decisively to encourage dialogue, as the stakes are higher than ever. Without renewed efforts toward diplomacy, the region may find itself on the brink of a devastating conflict. The relationship between the United States and Iran has been fraught with tensions for decades, rooted in the 1979 Iranian Revolution and the subsequent hostage crisis. This pivotal moment marked a shift in U.S.-Iran relations, leading to decades of mistrust and hostility. In the years leading up to today, multiple attempts have been made to negotiate peace, most notably the 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA. This agreement aimed to curb Iran's nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief. However, President Trump withdrew from the JCPOA in 2018, citing concerns over Iran's regional activities and missile program, which he argued threatened U.S. allies in the Middle East. Since then, both nations have engaged in a cycle of escalating rhetoric and sanctions, further straining an already fragile relationship. In recent weeks, diplomatic overtures appeared to resume, with U.S. officials indicating a willingness to engage with Iran under certain conditions. However, Trump's cancellation of the talks underscores a significant failure to bridge the gap between the two countries. This breakdown has resulted in increased tensions, with both sides experiencing domestic pressures that complicate negotiations. Analysts fear that continued hostilities could lead to military confrontations, destabilizing the region even further. The impact of these strained relations extends beyond bilateral issues, affecting global oil markets and international security dynamics. Observers note that a shift in U.S. foreign policy could redefine alliances in the Middle East, particularly with countries like Saudi Arabia and Israel, both of whom view Iran as a primary adversary. As the Biden administration grapples with these complexities, it faces the challenge of reestablishing a credible diplomatic framework. The future of U.S.-Iran relations hinges on whether both nations can find common ground, and whether the U.S. can effectively balance its strategic interests while pursuing diplomatic solutions. In the coming days, several scenarios could unfold following the cancellation of the peace talks between the United States and Iran. This abrupt halt comes amid long-standing tensions over Iran's nuclear program and its regional activities, which have raised alarm among U.S. allies in the Middle East. One possibility is an increase in military activity in the Persian Gulf, as both Iran and the United States may bolster their military presence in response to heightened tensions. Historical context reveals that previous military escalations have often led to conflicts, raising the stakes for both nations involved. Another scenario could involve Iran ramping up its nuclear activities, as the country may view the cancellation as a signal that diplomatic efforts are futile. This potential pivot raises concerns among international watchdogs and could prompt a re-evaluation of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which aimed to curb Iran's nuclear ambitions. Experts predict that within the next few weeks, we may see a reactionary spike in oil prices and increased volatility in global markets, given the region's critical role in oil supply. As the situation develops, one must consider the long-term implications of this diplomatic breakdown for global peace and security. The failure of negotiations could lead to a renewed arms race in the region, drawing in other global powers and destabilizing already fragile alliances. Additionally, the impact on civilian populations could be severe, as economic sanctions and military posturing often exacerbate humanitarian crises. Observers should closely monitor statements from both Iranian officials and U.S. military leaders for signs of impending actions. Looking ahead, the world must prepare for a potentially more turbulent geopolitical landscape as the repercussions of this diplomatic collapse unfold in real time. As tensions rise following the cancellation of peace talks with Iran, what do you think the long-term implications will be for global peace? Comment with your predictions and be sure to subscribe for more in-depth analyses.